Hello and welcome into the Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat slash. We're going to talk about the postseason because as we talk about this, no games have been played yet, and there's about to be a lot of baseball. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, and I'm joined by Kevin Reichard. Kevin, if you like baseball, and both of us do, we're about to get our fill. It's going to be like Thanksgiving here.
We're gonna see a lot of baseball games jammed into a very short amount of time. And it's going to be interesting how this postseason plays out with some staggering home field advantages, even with no fans in the stands.
There are seeds. There's the 1-8, the 2-7. I don't know about you. I have the feeling that this is going to be like hockey in terms of the seeding's not going to really matter in the end. I'm not expecting pure chalk. There are favorites, but there's also just this feeling of we've never had a playoff like this before. And so who knows what to expect and who knows which team might make it to the World Series in the end. We got the short series to start things off, and then we've got the sites where all the games will be played in after we get past the wild card round.
Yeah, I was looking over the schedule, and how do you scout Toronto at Tampa? I mean, Toronto is in theory a team built for turf. Didn't play on turf. Now they're playing on turf in Tampa, which, normally would have a huge crowd for the playoffs for the first time this year for, Tampa. So it's impossible to scout. How will Toronto play? How will San Diego play? How will these young teams react? Which one's going to crumble first? And, my pick, and I did a bracket. My picks basically said the veteran teams will do the best. And I have the Dodgers winning it all.
Okay, so do you mind if I go through each of the series with you to hear your picks?
Absolutely.
Okay, I've not made any picks yet. I don't know if I'm going to make picks because I just have the feeling that it's a coin flip in certain cases. And I also don't want to get caught picking all favorites, but in some cases, I do kind of like the favorites because there's a reason they had the kind of regular season that they had. So Let's begin in the American League, and let's begin close to home for you. All right, so let's go. Minnesota Twins, Houston Astros. Do the Twins knock out the Astros?
Twins win in 2 games. Astros have shown so little life this year, and when there's no home field advantage for the Astros, they don't look like the same team. They sort of backed into the playoffs under 500.
The home road splits that I've seen from team to team, just looking at the standings this year, the Astros at home 20-8, and on the road 9-23. So welcome into Minnesota, and good luck on the road the entirety of the series.
Yes, especially where the weather could actually play a little factor. Although they're playing in the afternoon today, it's chilly up in the Twin Cities right now.
Let's stay in the Central for the White Sox, who are going into Oakland and taking on the A's. Do you like the A's as the favorite or the White Sox as the good young team with that great young lineup?
I went with the A's just because I went with veteran teams. I think this is the biggest chance for an upset in the first round in either league, though, quite honestly. But Oakland playing in Oakland with that pitching staff, it'll be hard for Chicago to compete.
It's so interesting to me the potential of, for years, we've had these Billy Bean built teams. We can throw in the word Moneyball into the equation of teams that, against the budgetary lack of resources that they have won over the long haul, have won over 162 games, and yet get into the postseason and in a short series, and that's it. It's over just like that. And now here you go. Short season, short series. Can they win? Well, in a short series, anybody can win. So maybe this is the A's year. That would be a lot of fun.
They're pretty stacked at pitcher. I mean, I got to say that. And when you look at a short series, having those arms, that's the big advantage.
Yeah, especially if you can get out of the first round, to have depth at pitcher because the games just keep on coming and there's no let up. Yeah. All right. So let's go to that Toronto-Tampa series that you were previewing. Toronto's manager, Charlie Montoyo, I know the Blue Jays very well. He came up through the Rays. He knows the Rays very well. They know him. They know his bongo playing very well. Can the Blue Jays as the 8 seed upset the Tampa Bay Rays?
Nah, their victory, making the playoffs was their victory, and really restoring life to that franchise was that victory. But man, Tampa looks so confident. I caught some of their year-end games, and boy, they're a little swagger in that team right now, even though no one knows who they are.
There's a lot of conversation in Toronto right now about they have an ace. They signed Hyunjin Ryu to be their ace of their staff. And Charlie Montoya and the Blue Jays are starting him in game 2. And they've given Matt Shoemaker the game 1 start and Taijuan Walker the, if necessary, game 3 start. The whole idea and the controversy being, why wouldn't you start your very best pitcher in game 1? So moving him to game 2, we'll see. But we'll see if that actually makes a difference in the end anyway.
We'll see. Having the ace there in game 2 or 1, I think is irrelevant to the 3-game series. You can only pitch him so many days.
The Trop, the House of Horrors. All right, so our last matchup is the Yankees, the Indians. I mean, we know about New York's bats. We know about what Cleveland brings to the table, and they caught fire toward the end of the season. After they went on a slide, they righted their ship. Who wins?
I picked the Yankees. I just went with veteran arms. We'll see if Garrett Cole's worth the money. I mean, that's the bottom line. Is, will the big stars come out for the Yankees? And Voigt's been looking really good. If they can get some production out of some of their other guys, I've thought Cleveland played over their heads a lot this season, and they've had a lot of roster turnover. So this is the upset I went with. Maybe I'm just sentimental for the Yankees. But I saw Cleveland play the Twins a lot this year, and I was never overly impressed, and especially since they traded away their best pitcher.
Well, Shane Bieber's been great.
He has been great.
That Shane Bieber-Garrett Cole matchup, that's a great matchup on paper.
Garrett Cole, though, I think he's the guy that's gonna thrive under the pressure.
Okay, so that's the American League, and we can continue those moving forward. Who do you have making it to the ALCS?
I have Tampa then defeating the Yankees and Oakland defeating the Twins.
How about that Tampa Bay Oakland in the ALCS? The Rays and A's. Who do you want to go to the World Series?
I have Tampa in the World Series.
Okay,
I'm going with. They have experience. They've been in the playoffs, and they just seem to play really hard. And I think that really makes a difference in a team like this.
But I love lingo terms, nicknames. Do you know that Tampa Bay's bullpen has a nickname?
I did not. What is it?
They're the stable.
Of course they are.
What a stable of arms they have. And they come at you with the depth and with their waves.
Right.
All right.
Exactly.
National League, we've got some fun. Let's start off with the 1-8. The Milwaukee Brewers have been good in past years. This was not one of those years, but they really do have some good arms. Christian Yelich was bad. We know what he's capable of. If they get to Devin Williams, there's some fun to be had. They get the Dodgers. The Dodgers knock them out.
I picked the Dodgers. The only way this is interesting for the Brewers is if Counsell can manage that bullpen to perfectly. It has to be a perfect management because they're down their number 1 starter. They're down some experience from past years. And my gut says this is the Dodgers' year.
As a broadcaster, I like to go into games and ask the question of how does a team want to win? For years and years, for example, when you take on the Tampa Bay Rays, you better be leading against them late, because if the game is tied late, they have the confidence that you're not going to score against their bullpen. And so all they have to do is figure out a way to score and you've lost. And there are other teams, think about the Kansas City Royals when they won the World Series. If they had the lead going to the 6th, 7th, 8th innings, you were done.
Yeah.
It's fascinating when you take on a team that has that kind of capability at the end of the game, and then it's over for you. And on the other side, we've seen the Dodgers with their late bullpen collapses in the postseason. And last year, the Brewers could have knocked out the Nationals in the wild card game. If you remember, they beat Josh Hader.
They should have won that game. Isn't that ironic? They could have been World Series champions. They could have gone all the way.
They could have. All right, moving on in the National League, and these are the series that will start up tomorrow with Game One. Today being a Tuesday, Game Ones are all the American League, and then we get the 8-game Wednesday, and off we roll into it. Let's go to the Cardinals and Padres. Series being played in San Diego. The Cardinals have the history. The Cardinals had a great season from Paul Goldschmidt. They've still got Adam Wainwright as an ace. And the Padres have what you could put forth as this is what baseball should promote as the future. Do you push the Padres forward?
I went with like it in these rankings. I treat it like March Madness. So I picked St. Louis over San Diego, just because I picked the one lower seed. I think St. Louis has got a whole bunch of experience that will come in really handy this year.
San Diego's got some pitching question marks.
Yeah, both teams. San Diego, I almost went with them going all the way. It's going to be feast or famine with them. Either they're going to win the whole darn thing or they're going to lose in the first round. That's my biggest prediction of the day.
San Diego had the second best record in the National League, but the team with the number 2 seed is the Atlanta Braves. And they get a Cincinnati Reds team who, I don't know if you've seen any of the Joey Votto interviews, but his interviews, his times taking questions and talking about the Reds, his confidence is radiating in what Cincinnati is bringing, especially that starting rotation. So Cincinnati, Atlanta, who you got?
I had the Braves, but that was a toss-up because I think the Reds are on a streak. Trevor Bauers looked really great. I believe he was pitcher of the month in the National League. Talk about him for Cy Young, mainly from Trevor Bauer. But anyway, it's still. I just went with a veteran. Maybe I shouldn't have, but in this case, I did. I did see a lot of the Reds in the final weeks of the season because they played the Brewers a ton, and boy, are they methodical. It's business. You get out there, you get your outs, you get your hits, and you're done. You're off the field. And all of a sudden the game's over and you look up at the scoreboard and you've lost by 3 runs.
That, to my mind, is a team that is built to win no matter what adversity is thrown at them. When they understand how to finish off a game, it's a really difficult team when if the weather's going haywire or if they just don't have it or on defense there are miscues, that's the sort of team that can right itself. Yeah. Whereas another team that's built on emotion and momentum, they could be in trouble if the bats go quiet.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think that's going to be a momentum series. If the Braves are doing well the first 5 innings of the first game, they're going to win the whole thing. And vice versa. If the Reds come out strong, build the lead, I think they'll just win the whole thing.
The opposite of the Joey Votto press conferences have been the Chris Bryant interview and answer. And the Chicago Cubs are in the playoffs. It has not been all roses, but they're at Wrigley with the Ivy to host the Miami Marlins, who the big story with the Marlins halfway through the year was they didn't have enough players to play baseball. They were calling up every other team because half the team had COVID. Well, they're in, and they've got good young pitchers, and they've got some interesting young hitters who maybe a lot of folks don't know about. But Sixto Sanchez's arm looks legit. They picked him up from the Phillies for JT Realmuto. Do you have the Marlins knocking out the Cubs?
I have the Cubs. Again, went with the veterans. Just went with the veterans in a short series. It will be fun to watch these teams next year because I think the Marlins will start doing better, even better next year. And I think the Cubs will tail off. I think the Cubs win of the season totally pressure-free. New manager, David Ross, it would have been, they were sort of given a pass. They weren't expected to be really good this year. And then they were really good this year. But they were also really up and down, too. I mean, I watched a few of their games where the Twins just trounced them. They weren't even particularly close games.
Javi Baez was so bad. And Chris Bryant was not great. And you look at other key hitters on their team, and they did not have good seasons. And I look at other teams where also they did not hit. The Cardinals, by and large, you set Paul Goldschmidt aside, they did not hit. The Cincinnati Reds had a lot of their key hitters not hit this year, although they got the power from them. And yet here they are. And just that feeling, blank slate, figure something out, do something, catch fire. You could push your team through in a short series. All right, so now we've got the Dodgers against the Cardinals. Am I being presumptuous by saying you're definitely pushing the Dodgers forward?
Definitely pushing the Dodgers forward.
All right. Do you have the Cubs pushing forward?
I do. I think Atlanta will survive the first round, and then their tank will be out of gas.
All right, so we've got the Tampa Bay Rays waiting for the winner of the Cubs-Dodgers series. Do you have the Dodgers getting back to the World Series?
I do. I think they're a little hungry this year. And I have the Dodgers winning it all, although I got to say, I went back and forth between Tampa and the Dodgers about 3 different times. I'm not totally convinced. I'm not sold on my own convictions.
There is something funny going on with this Dodgers team in the playoffs that when we look back on them, boy, I hope they get some World Series titles. Facing the Astros, and we understand about the Astros championship, facing the Red Sox, and their championship now has a taint. What happened last year where the Nats knocked them off and it was just another black mark on Clayton Kershaw's line. The Dodgers are so good every year in the regular season. And then something, whether it's on them, whether it's not on them, whether it's a classic series, that World Series against the Astros was so good.
Yeah. We'll see what pitchers show up. You know, the thing about the Dodgers is they made that big deal with the Twins and the Red Sox. So they got Mookie Betts, but they also really got some good young arms in the deal. They got the Twins, maybe the Twins' top prospect who's now in the bullpen for them. And again, it'll come down to bullpens and managers.
And one hitter catching fire, like Marco Scutaro. Last year, Howie Kendricks applying the key swing for the Nationals, and right on down. Guys who, over the course of a regular season, they might be good, they might be pretty good, they might not be pretty good.
Yeah, I think we're getting a lot of home runs from the Dodgers. You know, they swing for the fences. And I think that the Dodgers may be a little affected playing in Texas on turf during a World Series. I mean, that's Tampa's natural field, literally the same synthetic turf. So does that give them an advantage? Maybe. You know, these young guys from Tampa, if they can feel like they're more at home, who knows?
There's been a large conversation about how much each of these seasons should have an asterisk attached because it's so unusual. And I just read an argument for someone about the NBA season because how many NBA coaches got fired? They said there can't be an asterisk when it's costing people their jobs if they don't succeed.
Yeah, I don't believe in the asterisk. You know, some major league players pointed out, rightfully so, that yeah, the long season is grueling, a lot of travel, but in terms of dealing with the COVID and family issues and quasi bubbles, this has been an emotionally hard season too, especially when they really didn't have that much time to prep after spring training. So I refuse to acknowledge the asterisk in Major League Baseball. NBA, maybe I will, because you put LeBron James on the road during the NBA playoffs. Maybe he's not so sharp as when he's just playing a game and then lounging at Disney World for a day. So, you know, Major League, definitely no asterisk.
The minor league season, this is how things go. Very, very, very few days off, maybe one a month during the busiest months. And then the postseason is just boom, 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 boom games. Now we've got that at the major league level. The teams that get through, to my mind, the entire time has been March Madness. This has been NCAA basketball in terms of, it doesn't matter the seeds, it just mattered that you got in and that now you figure out with your team, with all of your pitchers, how to scratch out a win and survive and advance, because it really is going to come down to attrition. The teams that get through round upon round, Kevin, I feel that they're going to be dealing with some tired arms by the end.
And that's kind of why I went with the veteran teams, quite honestly, because once they make it to past the first round, they're going to be no travel. They're going to be in their bubble. They're going to be sequestered. They will not have to deal with a late night flight after a road loss. They will be able to lounge by the pool, so to speak. And so that's why my gut says veterans will play an inordinately large role once the playoffs begin, because these are the guys who have done it before. They know the pressures, and they can focus just on baseball now. None of, they'll make their Zoom interview appearances, but it's not like running around during a typical Major League Baseball game day in the playoffs. I mean, people underestimate how much stuff goes on during the playoffs for a team, between interviews, between meetings, between, all the behind the scenes stuff. And now the players can pretty much just focus on baseball.
Yeah, all of that gets exhausting, especially if a player is an introvert, or if a player wants to concentrate on preparing for that next day's pitch or studying his own video. Every single thing that goes on, it's easy to be distracted. We hear that every year with the Super Bowl, right? All of the different media days leading up to the game, and the team that comes out there and they're unfocused, or they're not locked in, they're not ready for it.
Yeah, and that's why veteran teams usually do pretty well in the Super Bowl. Witness the Patriots, And I think the Cardinals and the Yankees are kind of like the Patriots in that, the Patriots, regular season, they'll do well, but then everyone knows how to kick it up a notch in the playoffs. And the Cardinals are just the archetype of that. A bunch of 260 hitters, but all of a sudden there'll be two or three guys hitting 300, hitting 320 in the playoffs because they turn it on when they need to.
That's the joke in the minor leagues, is that when it comes time for the playoffs, there's usually about 5, 6, 7 guys who are ready to go back to their family. They're done. And the question is, the guys who are not ready to be done yet, how many of them are there, and what positions are they in? And if those guys are in the right positions and there are enough of them, then you'll win the whole thing. But it's balancing out the guys who are done with the guys who are not done, and simply the whole idea of who's happy that they made it, who's glad, hey, we got into the postseason, our season can therefore be considered a success, and who's not satisfied. This is going to be over in a hurry for a lot of squads. Today, tomorrow, and somebody's going to be out in the American League.
Yeah, and that's where the managers are so important. The minor league scenario you raised, that manager's got to tell them this really does count. I mean, in the long run, in the big picture, Lansing winning the Midwest League title, you may not look back on that in 20 years, but it's important now, and it's important to your prospects, and it's important to their future. And I look at the managers in the major league playoffs, and what a talented group of people. I mean, you've got managers no one's ever heard of, yet they're amazingly successful. Rocco Baldelli, if he were in New York, he'd be a folk hero. Same with Kevin Cash.
A lot of young managers, or a lot of first year, second year, third year managers, guys who have not been in their positions very long.
Yeah. And then you got Don Mattingly back in the playoffs. What a great story that is. Took a crap job, and now he's got a team in the playoffs.
Just lets you know, it's all relative, especially in a season like this one.
Yeah. Charlie Montoya is a great story too. I mean, I was reading some stuff up on him today, and I know you worked with him when he was in the Blue Jays system. You got to know him, and he just seems like a tremendous guy as well as a tremendous manager. So, I'm rooting for these managers like Baldelli and Montoya and Cash who are balance as well as baseball.
Worked with Charlie Montoya in 2006 with the Montgomery Biscuits. So AA, Tampa Bay, back when they were the Devil Rays.
Yeah.
So that's where I got to actually see, and now fast forward all these years later. And the Blue Jays plucked him out after he had all those years managing the Durham Bulls. And then he left the Tampa Bay system, and here he is with the Blue Jays. I believe I read that he's the very first manager ever in his first year to lose 90-plus games, and in his second year to steer the team into the postseason.
Isn't that something? What a great story.
It's nice. Kevin, there was a Q&A over the weekend in The Athletic with Pat O'Connor. Did you see this?
I heard about it. I didn't read it closely. What were the highlights for poor Pat?
So I did not take away anything very new from it. What I would like with this is he's still on the job. And even though it's his retirement circuit, even though he's speaking at the Innovators Conference, I would have loved to see this Q&A fast forward 5 months. Sit down with him in January, February, and March. Now he's retired. And now things have changed in minor league baseball. And then I would really like to hear from him, because it seemed to me that he was, whether he was talking around some questions or there were some things he did not feel comfortable talking about yet.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Jesse. I'm going to throw that in the schedule. See if we can set up some sort of Zoom chat with him after he leaves and we know what's going to happen with minor league baseball, which from what I can gather is still a huge mess in terms of what's going on. The Appy League announcement came today, which was no surprise. Summer collegiate ball, duh. That's about their only. That was their only path forward. But on the other levels, there's still committees meeting on the minor league side. There's still proposals going back and forth, and a lot of mud still happening. And given that Major League Baseball loves to lock down any news other than the playoffs during the playoffs of the World Series, I don't expect much to be going on now until after the World Series in terms of any announcements. And these poor teams, they've got to be preparing for next year. They don't have schedules. They don't have opponents. I mean, I wrote about Buffalo this morning, and it's like Buffalo Bison can't really start planning for next year because they really don't know a schedule or who their opponents are going to be. You know, the assumption is Jacksonville's joining the International League, but if they end up lopping off a team or two and some reorganization, who knows?
Yeah, can you imagine being the Buffalo Bisons and you've just done how much to work with the Blue Jays, to host the Blue Jays, and the Blue Jays said thank you, and this was a positive experience. That's the gift that you give them. When the Blue Jays say, is there anything that we can give you as a thank you present? Give us clarity on the future. Give us something that we can build on and sell tickets. Buffalo's hot right now. If you're a baseball fan in Buffalo, you are locked in. This is the best time for Buffalo Bison's management to say, great, let's get your season tickets in for next year.
One thing that won't happen, it sounds like, is the Blue Jays won't be making an appearance in Buffalo in 2021, which would have been the ultimate, gift. I expect that to happen at some point, though. I think that Toronto would be stupid not to do a exhibition game down there. But, Toronto's also suffering from a little bit of, we don't know what's going to happen either. I mean, the major league schedule's out, which is fine, but the spring schedule's out and not complete. For instance, there's no Montreal games on the schedule for Toronto. And I assume that's because they don't want any Canadian travel using rules set forth right now until they absolutely have to go to Toronto. So everyone's sort of operating in this weird semi-state of is the cat alive or is it dead?
Schrodinger. With regard to COVID-19, there's so much that we do not know about the future and where things are going to be, right? 2022, we hope to have a handle on things. Right. 2021, we're not sure. In 2020, we know that the Tennessee Titans just had an outbreak. And how is that going to affect the NFL season?
Oh, it already is. Both the Vikings and the Titans are affected now. So, there's no practicing this week for either team, even though the Vikings showed no positives whatsoever. So, that's why spring will be interesting. People are skeptical of spring training happening, and right now it's going to happen, but I expect there to be, 50 to 75% capacity in ballparks. Berms will probably be shut off, in terms of not allowing fans to cluster. Group spaces will be limited. As we saw the Yankees plan develop with the county, lots of plexiglass, lots of lots of timed entries to ballparks. It's going to be way different, and I expect those things to happen during the major league season as well, judging by the fact we just cannot deal with COVID mitigation in this country whatsoever.
That was something I learned as a broadcaster in terms of going into each off season and job searching is the uncertainty twisting you in the wind,
Yeah.
and there's so much uncertainty going on. I want to go back. You mentioned the Appy League announcement last week, I believe it was. Wasn't that when the independent leagues made their announcement? I'm a former Frontier leaguer, so I'm constantly seeing what's going on with the Frontier League, and there's the announcement, hey, we are now partnering up with Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I got kind of a lecture on Twitter from a formerly independent league team that the phrase is non-functional anymore. There's no such thing as independent baseball. They're not affiliates, but they're not independent either. They're partners.
Kevin, do you call them dependent baseball now?
Oh, I'm going to wait for the whole reorganization to happen before I settle in nomenclature for teams, to be totally honest. But, you know, what struck me about the announcement and subsequent follow-up calls is that employees are being told that there's going to be this close relationship with Major League, but when you ask the owners, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe a program ad or two. You know, no, they haven't defined what a partner league is right now, as of right now. All they know is they're not independent, and they're willing to tell everyone in the world that.
So this potentially, I had several different reactions. Reaction number one was, boy, independent baseball was fun when they were all renegades and they were outright taking on minor league baseball and taking on Major League Baseball and doing wild things. Reaction number two was, in those days, and those days have stretched forward to very recently, it was so financially difficult to keep your independent league team afloat, and teams closed down, and indie leagues had road teams and traveling teams constantly. That was my experience. So it was just fluctuating constantly. All right, so
And I have one more thing that no one can answer, which I think is going to be huge at some point. Does this deal mean Major League Baseball has the power to kill any proposals to place a partner team in a Major League market? If it does, the partner leagues are screwed, because the most successful independent teams are in Major League markets.
Well, I think about the Washington Wild things near Pittsburgh, or all of the different teams around Chicago, like Schaumburg. Yeah, it's Long Island Ducks, etc. The teams that are right there, because that's a populated area. And it's such a populated area, city into the suburbs. You've got baseball fans that you can bring in because your prices are better and you've got a lot of fun. You can show them baseball that's not all that far away from where they live.
And remember, Major League teams define territory as being really sprawling. Let's say you want to establish an independent California league, and you like being near the seacoast. There is not a square foot of mileage within the California sea line that's not a Major League territory, ranging from the A's and the Giants down to the Padres. So, you know, I hope this will not come to be, but I fret a little bit that the partner leagues may have signed away a little bit more than they bargained for.
Is there any bit of this that is part of negotiations, that Major League Baseball is telling minor league baseball, hey, now we've got these partners, now we can just bring these independent league teams in as affiliates if you aren't interested?
I think that's a big part of it. I think that's to humble the minor league owners, and more than one owner in the last 2 weeks told me how really pissed off they were at how they were being treated by Major League Baseball, that they're just being treated like you know, the lowest level of entrepreneur possible, that they weren't really worthy of direct equal negotiations. And I think the independent league stuff is just sort of indicative of that. You know, to announce those partner leagues when you haven't even come to a final agreement on a plan going forward means, yeah, you don't like what we're doing minor league baseball. Screw you. We'll send a player down to Long Island. We don't care.
Southern Illinois, come on in, etc.
Exactly.
The oral history of these negotiations, whenever it is told, however it is told, is going to be must read. If people are willing to talk about what is actually happening, what they're actually experiencing, and the different timeline all along the way, I mean, my goodness.
Oh, I've been taking notes, and I've been encouraged to keep careful track of what's going on for some future project like that. I don't know. It's very Rashomon to me. People on the committees are different than people off the committees. And, nature abhors a vacuum. And a lot of these minor league guys are operating in a vacuum, as are the major league guys. I think some of the stuff in here surprised them over time that what do you mean only 4 teams? Wait a minute. This isn't what we bargained for. So, it's such a work in progress still as of right now.
That just reminded me of an aspect of the Q&A with Pat O'Connor from The Athletic, where he was asked about 3 teams, Lancaster, Fresno, and Clinton. And he said, well, Lancaster, the big problem is just the weather. We can't help that. It's the weather. Fresno, I love the folks in the front office. The executives, they're doing great. They're doing a wonderful job. Clinton, well, let's move on.
Yeah, there's some telling details there. I'm not so sure I would have picked those 3 as really representative of what's going on. I feel sorry for the Lancaster people are really great people too. So there's going to be a lot of great people that are going to suffer through this whole process. And same with Fresno, great people, worked really hard. It should never have been a AAA mark in the first place. And I think that's, we knew that a long time ago. And I know the front office people really kind of wish that they hadn't gone AAA in the first place. But and Clinton.
The contrast of this conversation, that we go from Major League Baseball and discussing the postseason into the business of minor league baseball with Major League Baseball. That, to my mind, it's such a harsh black and white divide behind the scenes in terms of what's going on the field and the Major League product, and what's actually going on in the business and everything that leads up to this. Working in minor league baseball, all these guys that we're celebrating and promoting, I saw them. I see them in Fort Wayne or in South Bend or wherever it might be, on their way up, and now they're the stars, and now they've got this platform. And yet, here's what's going on with all of these teams that helped provide the form, helped provide where they could go and be and develop to get them there. That, to my mind, is really stark and important.
Yeah, and that especially takes on added poignancy when you look at the rookie and short season leagues, because there, I think, when you get situations where you have host families and more community involvement, it becomes especially poignant when you lose your team. And I'll say this, to Major League's credit, they worked with the Appy League to come up with the summer collegiate plan. And they can legitimately say to West Virginia legislators that we work to keep baseball in your communities. Not quite putting the same amount of work in the Pioneer League, by the way, but it's still nice that the Appy League will survive as a summer collegiate league, and Major League Baseball did help to keep baseball there.
Is there any specific reason that comes to mind for you for the difference in treatment for the Appy League compared to the Pioneer League?
Well, if you look at the political makeups, there was a West Virginia Republican legislator who was key in these efforts to oppose contraction. Not quite the same opposition out west. Steve Daines, senator from Montana, did sign up and did talk about it, but Daines is kind of losing his race. Daines may not be around in 2 months, so I think there's less effort to placate the Idaho and Montana and Colorado legislators as there was to placate the Eastern legislators.
All the politicians We're running the races. Nobody wants to make minor league baseball a key part of their What, are there more important things that everybody else is running on?
Absolutely not. There's no other topics whatsoever this year.
Kevin, let's go to our baseball thesaurus lingo. Our word, our phrase. Pick a number, any number.
72.
72 it is. All right. So we have arrived in error. One of my favorite phrases is when a fielder fights the ball. And so I'm going to gesture this is a first baseman. A first baseman can accept the ball as it's coming in, and you'll see the first baseman, as he does so, if he's a good first baseman, take it in and snatch that foot right off the bag. You fight the ball when you're actually punching your glove out for it before the ball arrives in. Same thing with a bouncer, whatever it might be toward an infielder. There's the vacuum it in style, and then there's the fight it, where your hands jab out to try to meet it. I love that phrase. And you can see it in terms of differentiating between a good defender and a poor one.
Yeah, the poor defender, some of the hardest balls to field are the balls hit right at you, and especially if they've got a little English. And so is it going to, it's moving around. It's kind of like a knuckler coming at you. And those are the bad fielders are the ones who are batting at it because they're not totally confident where it's going to end up, while the good fielders are in position to grab it.
Okay, so I just had to look this up. Why is spin called English? Why do we talk about, hey, he put some English on it for, let's say, someone spinning a finger roll up and in, or why if there's a weird bouncer up the first base side that spins fair after starting foul, why do we talk about it's English? It comes from English snooker and the spin that people put on the ball. So in English snooker, if you put that great spin on it, I'm going to gesture, then that's putting a little English on it. Okay. So from snooker into baseball, into basketball, into any other sport where you can figure where that player is, whether they meant to, like they often do in basketball, or where they don't, where the hitter did not mean to spin it like that, but it just worked out for him.
That's a great term. I would have guessed tennis for some reason, because you see that happen a lot, done purposely on the tennis court. Put some English on it to bounce away from an opponent. But snooker, man, we need more snooker references in our world today, I think.
There you go. And I love the term, the opposite of fighting it. I love when a great infielder vacuums. And at one point when the Hoover vacuum was the vacuum, you would call a great defensive infielder a Hoover because how he would suck it right up.
Yeah, again, a phrase that should be used more these days.
Danny Solano is the Blue Jays roving infield instructor. And I see him, I see coaches with other teams. Young infielders will just go down there going for the ball, and they'll say, just gather. And there's another term, how you gather it right up to your chest, gather it right up to your body to get ready.
Yeah.
There's your baseball lingo. There's your baseball thesaurus term for this chat. You ready to wrap things up and look forward to this baseball?
Let's look forward to the orgy of baseball that starts in about, the Twins start at 1, so there we go.
A lot of baseball coming your way. A little bit of end of September, start of October madness. Let's enjoy it. Check out ballparkdigest.com, sign up for the newsletter, get all the information, all the news, great columns, everything that you want to know straight from Kevin Reichard. For Kevin, I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. We wish Mick Gillespie the best, and he'll rejoin us next week. This has been the Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat.